Okay, everyone, this is my spoiler review of X-Men the Animated Series Season 2, Episode 4, Red Dawn. This came out originally November 13th, 1993. Please make sure to subscribe. I'm doing everything X-Men on this channel, so if you're a huge X-Men fan, I come out with a video almost every day, and I respond to as many comments as possible, so make sure to hit that sub button. So over these last 3 episodes, we see we're getting like little breadcrumbs of the Magneto and Professor X storyline. I almost wish they didn't do this as much right now with them and just gave us a full episode of them together, because it feels strange. Like this episode, they opened with an interesting story with them and never come back to it. But we see it really does continue right where the cliffhanger was last week, where Magneto and Professor X are now in the Savage Land. And Magneto's like, I will never understand you, Charles. Your life would be infinitely easier if mine were to end, yet you saved me. And Professor X is like, I do not yearn for an easy life, Magneto, only a just one. I would take little satisfaction in your death. This is just a great type of Professor X line to Magneto. They always have great dialogue to each other and philosophical debates. And then a freaking dinosaur chases them here, and they don't have their powers, so you're seeing them try to get through this without their powers. And Magneto uses his smarts to kill this dinosaur. And he's like, I may not have my mutant powers, Charles, but I shall not die easily. Really good line here. But it's so interesting. You want to know more what's going on in the strange land they're in, and it's just kind of teased a lot now, and you're getting a little impatient, like, okay, let's get the full story here, what's going on. So I do think the pacing of the season with that story has been very strange. Now we go to Komutsky Valley, which is former Soviet Union, and this Russian music starts to pump in as the military arrives, and they're taking over the city with tanks and robots. And the same time, our big villain in this episode, Omega Red, is being brought out, and he's like, the leaders are weak. They restrained me once and lost the empire. Now they have brought me back a living weapon they had grown to fear. The empire shall live, they shall not. So he's one of those classic villains too, that he's doing his job he's been made for, and he still has ultimate plans of him being the one in control, a lot like a master mold. Now we get to see this character of Dark Star, who is with the Russian generals, and she has her worries about even unleashing Omega Red for this takeover. They do a good job with the short time we have of Dark Star and making a satisfying story in her redemption arc, which I liked. We'll even see a moment where she tries to early on stop Omega Red from his chaotic ways, and he keeps blabbing away about being the new true leader under his iron hand. But we'll see in the States that we do get some time with the Friends of Humanity, who are causing havoc at this store. And Jubilee comes in, and then Colossus shows up, which is a nice surprise. And they just book it once they try to attack Colossus, and the cans just bounce off of him. And I love the store clerk just has no lines here, and he thanks Colossus, just shakes his hand and leaves. But Colossus came looking for help from the X-Men because of what's happening in his home. And Jubilee just leaves a note for the X-Men on the fridge. We learn that Cyclops, Jean, and the Beast are busy at Congress. And it's so funny that when Wolverine finds Jubilee's note, he's just like, Omega Red, and he crumples the paper up and throws it on the ground. And it gets this payoff later when Rogue, Storm, and Gambit show up, where Rogue's like, sorry we weren't here earlier, if someone didn't trash the note. Now, Jubilee and Colossus will get to Colossus' childhood farm, and we get a little backstory here about his little sister, Ileana, who for a moment he thinks is dead, and that in the past, she was almost killed by a tractor. He saved her, but he had to leave for destroying government equipment. And then we see Ileana is alive. Now, this is interesting, too, because last time we saw Colossus, he had left off when Wolverine was offering him to stay with the X-Men. He was like, no, I gotta go find my sister. This is him finding his sister at this moment where he thought she might have been dead. And it's funny, too, because at the end of the episode, Wolverine again will offer Colossus to come with them. And he's like, nah, I gotta rebuild my home. So he's always playing hard to get here. But Ileana takes Colossus and Jubilee to where the family and friends are being captured, and they take down the robot soldiers and some tanks, but this is where Omega Red shows up, and he captures Ileana. And there's a great moment here where Omega Red goes, fool, you cannot stop me, and Wolverine shows up with this great insert claw shot and goes, I can, you stinking octopus, just like last time. And then Wolverine will fight him, and Colossus just throws a tank onto Omega Red. This will slow him down for the time being, and this is where Wolverine gives a little backstory of the Soviets creating Omega Red, and we get an awesome Easter egg here of Captain America real quick. And we get a little shot of Wolverine and Maverick, who try to fight Omega Red, and they said they can only slow him down. And he says, I got lucky, but it stops there. So there's a little tease to more of that story, which we're sure to see. But this is when the Blackbird shows up and the rest of the X-Men come. And when they get into this battle, it sets up Darkstar helping them out. She's like, what if we let loose upon the world? This is where she's really turning, and she comes through to help. And I love that she uses her powers to shield the people, and it's really awesome to see her and Storm work together at the end when she pulls Colossus to safety and then stops Omega Red from moving with his feet, and Storm again steals the show. She is amazing and does this ice storm to freeze him like Mr. Freeze did in Batman and Robin to Robin. Omega Red has a very Doc Ock effect when we see him grabbing all the X-Men in this episode and just swirling them around. And the funniest moment was when he just decides to throw Wolverine like a cowboy. So we'll see Darkstar fully comes around, takes the generals that were evil, and's like, a new day has dawned, your night of terror is over, and takes them with her. And Ileana says to Colossus, is the terror really over? And he says, yes, thanks to such friends. The X-Men, was a nice little bow there. But this episode to me isn't one of the best so far. It's to me a 7.7 because it just feels a little empty and flat, and also strangely dropped in where it is in the storyline of this season, where we're getting a bunch of new introductions to different villains, and you're still wanting to see a little more of what's going on with Mr. Sinister, and especially what's going on right now with Professor X and Magneto. And it's like a side quest, which is fine, but I don't think Omega Red's the most interesting, complex villain either. And I know it's a kid show, but for this show standards, this one was like, okay, it's kind of by the numbers, and it just doesn't have the most interesting story going on, and doesn't have a lot of really funny lines like the show usually does either. So it was okay. It's not memorable to me. I think this is one that I'd probably put towards the bottom of the list of this show. So I'm going to give it a 7.7, but I'm curious what you guys saw this episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond to as many as I can. Like I said, please subscribe. I'm reviewing every episode of this show, and I'll be doing the new series as well. And I'll see you next time.